Hi, folks. Well, the Auckland Mayoral race. It really is beefing up to something. And we've got some main contenders. I've got Chris Waterman right here with me.
G'day, Maxie.
How are you, man?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
What's your views on this? Because I have not heard your opinion about the Mayoral race.
Yeah, look, I think probably if we look at who's standing for the mayoralty of Auckland at the moment, no one really jumps out as anybody who is particularly inspirational or drives the name recognition. I think Afiso Collins has had a checkered kind of reputation as a councillor around the council table.
No, he's Labour, isn't he?
He is a Labour endorsed candidate. Yeah.
Right. And who else we got?
Leo down on from.
Everyone knows him. He's the restaurateur that
Malloy.
gets in the middle of every controversy and smiles a lot. And
you got Viv Beck who is running
talking
Heart of
about
the City.
smiling, she smiles at everybody and anything, and seems lovely.
She really likes Queen Street. You have Wayne Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Fixer from, the late 90s, early 2000s, used to be the Far North District Mayor.
And what was he, civil engineer?
Yes, he was. And I don't know.
There's a guy in Newmarket, Banks Bridge, Lord.
Oh, Craig Lord, serial Auckland mayoralty runner. You know, his claim to fame is he's come third twice, but with something like 15,000 votes. So you're not talking about anybody really...
What calibre would you like?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I think that so far the mayoralty for Auckland has been either retired politicians from central government. So you look at, Phil Goff got pensioned off to be the mayor of Auckland. He's going to be pensioned off again to be an ambassador overseas. I think Len Brown was just kind of lucky to end up as the mayor. John Banks in 2010 didn't put forward a particularly cohesive campaign. I am frustrated that we seem to be spending lots of money doing things that aren't necessarily core council business.
So what credentials would you like to see?
So I think transformation, political acumen, and I think they're pretty basic things that everybody wants to see, right? But I think also a name that you can trust.
Let's go through them. Political what?
Political acumen.
Acumen, yeah.
Transformation. And then just basic nous, right? The interesting thing is someone like Wayne Brown will say, well, I've got those things.
But he's got no personality and charisma.
But he doesn't have any name recognition. He doesn't inspire confidence. I don't see vision or the vision that people are bringing to the table.
He's an engineer, and that's something that doesn't inspire to the public. Viv Beck will, but then she lacks all the other.
But Viv Beck's vision is about Queen Street. Everyone's vision is about Queen Street. What are we going to do to revitalise
What did she do for Queen Street?
I mean, she was the chief executive of the Heart of the City when Queen Street was ruined.
And by the way, folks, representing all the small businesses when it goes ruined. Absolutely all those businesses.
Hundreds of small businesses up Albert Street during the CRL still going on went bankrupt under her watch. And I'm frustrated that mayoral candidates continue to talk about what we're going to do about Queen Street. In Auckland Central, 60,000, 70,000 people live on that isthmus. That's it.
What's the population of the whole lot? Roughly about 1 million, is it?
About 1.5 million people.
So cheapers. What would that be? Less than 10%? Like 5%?
2% of 5% of people live there. So you go, what about talking about our high streets in Arua? What about talking about the town halls in Aotearoa? What about talking about the town centres that are being built around Henderson? No one's talking about how to unlock the potential of wider Auckland. All we hear again is, let's not pedestrianise Queen Street, let's pedestrianise Queen Street. I don't really care. I haven't driven up to Queen Street in 5 years. And I think a lot of people haven't driven up Queen Street in 5 years.
Agreed. So the other contenders, though, you've got Malloy. Now, he is doing quite well at the moment in the ratings, but I mean, the other factor is, but he seems to be focused in the middle of the city as well.
So I think Leo has the same problem that John Tamahiri had in 2019. The problem that they have is they represent significant change to the political class that has been running Auckland. So he has big, bold ideas, and actually some not so big, bold ones, like, if you can prove you're a responsible dog owner, we won't charge you dog registration fees. That's actually a pretty legitimate, good idea. But other big ideas about, a stadium on the waterfront. Eden Park hasn't made any money. It came back to the council for another loan, handout, whatever. We have a whole lot of stadia across Auckland that does nothing. We don't need another one.
And look at his credentials. He's really just a small businessman.
Well, and a vet.
And a bit. Well, not very long.
He wasn't small businessman, understands how to run businesses, I guess, but does that really translate to the grind of running the council and running the city? Because it is a grind. You have to be interested in everything from climate change policy, which I don't think Leo would be particularly interested in, all the way down to why my gutter fills up with silt when the storm happens. And that kind of grind doesn't give itself often to big personalities.
And the other factor is dealing with politics. You talked about political acumen. I don't think he's actually been in a political situation. As mayor, you don't actually have the power of veto. You don't have the powers to say yes and no. You've got to get your colleagues to come with you and get their vote. Correct or not?
No, that's absolutely right. I mean, you're one of 20 around that council table, or 21 around that council table, who can make decisions. And whilst you don't even chair all the meetings, right? So you don't always get the deciding vote. The difference between the Auckland Mayoralty and other mayors in New Zealand is that Auckland has an executive mayor, meaning that they can present budgets without the approval of the council.
Now, what's the key nous you need to do that? We're looking at budgets. That's spreadsheets, right?
Yep, it's about...
Reading a spreadsheet's a skill, isn't it?
Not only is it a skill, but reading government books is a skill in and of itself, because they're very complicated. What's rates, what's capital, what's expenditure, what's coming in, what's going out. They're far more complicated than running a business. And when we have a complex council structure where the council owns assets through other companies, whether it be the ports, whether it be Panuku, whether it's Auckland City Holdings, whatever, that lends itself to understanding bigger organisations.
Well, let's have a look at it.
Well, that's Wayne Brown's skill.
Exactly. But that's what I was going to go through the four main candidates. Viv Beck's probably run the heart of the city, but not very long. Alex Sweeney was torn away from that organisation, and she hasn't done a very good job looking after her constituents.
She hasn't.
So you can tell that that's not going to work too well. Then we've got Malloy, who's only run small businesses. Like he probably has 30 staff if he's lucky, maybe 50. But again, it's just a small business, and does he look at big spreadsheets? Probably not.
Probably not. He's probably concerned about wages and rent. That's kind of and cost of goods. That's not the type of financial acumen.
Fiso, what's his background?
A community worker, perhaps.
Well, he's not going to look at spreadsheets, is he?
And in the early days of him being a councillor, he certainly gave off the impression that he wasn't particularly interested in council business. Now, and if you look at what councillors...
So let's go back to it. Wayne Brown is the only one who's had that experience. And he brings to the table a lot of skills, but he lacks the personality. Do we vote for somebody with personality, Chris? Let's look at it. Hollywood stars. Ronald Reagan got in.
Yeah, Ronald Reagan, B-rate actor, became one of the finest.
Trump got in.
Yeah, well, he became one of the not-so-finest presidents. But you're right. Do we elect... Maggie Barry here on the North Shore was a well-known personality before going into politics.
She was.
Do we elect people because they are personable and they have a profile? Is that the criteria in which that we want to elect?
Well, I would say no, but the other factor is you don't want to dismiss it because you do need some of that.
The hard bit is you either need a hell of a lot of cash to run for the Auckland Mayoralty or you need a big name. Ideally, you need both those things. But I don't like to see the criteria for being the mayor being that you have $1 million in the bank to spend, because that ends up, the president of the United States is a similar situation, right? Only very rich people run for president. Only very rich people have run, or people who have significant financial backers, like Len Brown and what's his name, Colin from the Conservatives when he first ran.
Oh, way back, yeah.
I mean, he had a huge amount of money. His own personal money to spend. Banksy was the same. It's either you got to turn up with a political machine behind you, or turn up with cash behind you.
And that's wrong for democracy, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's we talk about what's happening on the North Shore and who's standing for the North Shore Ward for council. The same people turn up. People like George Wood will probably turn up, and Chris Darby and Richard Hill's well-known people. But in terms of a contest of ideas, there's not really anybody who can be attracted to stand. And the same thing with the Mayoralty. We're not attracting that candidate that will bring together the different divisions on the council table and be able to build a team to actually take their vision forward.
There's a lot of credentials there, though, Chris. I mean, it'd be hard to find somebody in society that's probably had political experience, had the big spreadsheet experience, understands the BS that may be fed by some of the bureaucrats. I'd like to talk to you about that, because I have this view that currently the biggest problems we have in our local council right now is that the bureaucrats are actually pulling the strings. They're telling our elected officials, hey, you guys don't know what you're doing, and we do, so trust us and we'll do it.
And I think that's actually just a symptom of big bureaucracy. Big bureaucracy in Auckland Council can frustrate initiatives before they get to decision makers. It's not often the chair will set the full agenda. Right? They rely on officers of the council to flesh it out for them, and those officers can pick and choose what they want to progress. Those officers can also schedule things like local board workshops when they know particular personalities around the local board table may not be able to attend.
I have the view that these bureaucrats are actually running the place, and they're doing it by feeding to the elected officials information they know that they don't understand, like spreadsheets and things like that, and also colouring it to some degree. Now, Chris, I would never accuse you of that, nor me, but it's possible. But that's what politics is about, and that's the game that these bureaucrats play to get the outcome that they want. And look, we're currently in trouble. Our organisation, the Auckland City, is financially in a lot of trouble.
I know you have a view that it is wrong that councillors in New Zealand, and particularly here in Auckland, can be censured by the CEO of the council if they breach the code of conduct. I know that your view of that is not the correct thing to do. Yeah. It is up to voters to take action.
Oh, the big statement I make is the tail wags the dog. If you step out of the line, elected official, I'm going to discipline you, and I think that's absolutely wrong.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to bring order and structure, I guess, to local government, because I think if you look, not necessarily in Auckland, but there is some cases across New Zealand where there has been an overreaction and an application of a code of conduct to an elected member, because two elected members may have had opposing and robust views on a particular issue.
Yeah, you make a good point, Chris. So I think that's probably we've given a sort of thorough overview. There's lots of stuff we could dig deeper in, and I'd love to get your views on a lot more of some of those issues, particularly facing Auckland, and we could talk about them one by one sometime.
Yeah, look, I think the outcome, the kind of the wrap up, the takeout is, I'm relatively disappointed by the talent that is running for the Mayoralty. I'm relatively disappointed for the talent that's running for councillors. I'm in touch with that stuff kind of north of the bridge. And I always kind of get the sense that it is about the same, rather than a cohesive policy platform.
Well said. Thanks, old friend.
Thank you.
See you next week.
See you later.